Welcome back inside the bunker. It is Tuesday, August 8th. As always, I'm Kevin Bunk coming to you weekdays for BTO Media, talking football all summer long. And today is a fun one. A lot of Jets and Giants stuff up front as requested by you, the listeners for this show. I got a lot of texts, calls this weekend. Let's get Jets and Giants preseason out of the way. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the joint practice. But today's highlight is going to be the second half of the show where we go through my schedule predictions. I went on a schedule predictor and went through game by game for every team and predicted it all that way. I didn't know what it was going to look like at the end. We just went game by game, week by week. So you can go to the description if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. Go to the description and check out the timestamps if you want to skip through the Jets and Giants stuff. But that's where we're going to start. So the Giants preseason debut could not have had a more exciting feeling for the organization. You get Russell Wilson in there, and the first team offense was really vanilla. They really didn't do much aggressively. A lot of quick throws, a lot of underneath routes. Offensive line did a good enough job in protection, but a lot of quick sets for the Giants in their passing game. I'm not impressed or disgusted by the Giants' first team offense. It just was what it was. But of course, the fireworks came in with the young guys, the first-round picks from this year. Jackson Dart looked awesome. He came in the first few snaps for Dart, the first few plays, I thought he looked uncomfortable. And that was my live reaction to it, was this guy doesn't look very comfortable. It's his first NFL action, though. I'm not really ripping him. But he didn't look comfortable. And then the fifth or sixth play, he starts to settle in. They pick up a first down, and then he's off. And he just looked confident. He looked like the quarterback we saw at Ole Miss on the good days, the good game days. That was the Jackson Dart you saw. Someone who's able to get the ball out quick, process the field, process the line of scrimmage mainly. I thought that was his better attribute than processing post-snap. But he processes pre-snap. He does a good job of that. That's what the touchdown was a product of. And he gets the ball out fast when he's playing well. Jackson Dart is not the improviser, rocket launcher quarterback that a lot of Giants fans, think that he is. He's not that guy. He is a short, underneath, run the system quarterback, and he was very good at it on the good game days at Ole Miss. The games that are bad are the ones where he holds onto the ball too long, where he doesn't try to use his legs at the appropriate times, where he's trying to become a little bit of a gunslinger. I don't think that's the quarterback Jackson Dart is meant to be. And you see a little bit of everything in the positive realm. You saw him play the short game, advance the ball, move the chains. You saw him with the deep ball, and a beautifully placed one at that. And you saw him use his legs to pick up a couple first downs. The 3 rushes were very positive signs. You see how athletic he is. He drew comparisons to Jalen Hurts out of college, and they weren't too far-fetched. So Dart gave you what you needed to see to get excited as a Giants fan. And now, because of that, it only takes that one. I don't care what Dart does in the game this weekend against the Jets or in their third week of the preseason. It only takes that one start and being a first-round pick for fans to quickly turn on Russell Wilson if the season starts sour. That is now a pressure point for Russ and for Jameis Winston and the rest of the quarterback room, because Giants fans are going to align with the young first-round pick out of Ole Miss, who has the swagger, who has the confidence in a year that could quickly become lost. I'm not saying I think that's how it's going to go. We'll discuss it more in the schedule prediction later, but it's a year with a very tough schedule and a very tough start, and it could be a lost season for the Giants quickly. And if it is, if there's not a playoff race to be had in New York, then you're going to want to see Jackson Dart. And he put himself in a position where the pressure's on the rest of the guys in the room, because we know he's not starting week 1, but the pressure's on the rest of the guys in the room now to perform. It's on the coaching staff, because the calls for Dart after what we saw this weekend are going to be loud if the Giants are not contending in October and November for a playoff spot, especially in that division. It could get out of hand fast. So Dart, excellent. I want to see a lot more. I want to see him run against first-team defenses. You're not seeing that in joint practice this week either. You're going to see Russ against the Jets' first-team defense, but overall, Dart, nice debut in the NFL, nice little welcome to the NFL moment. And again, it's preseason, so we don't totally know what it means. We don't know who was on the field for Buffalo during those snaps. You recognize 2 or 3 guys on that starting defense as you watch, or at the defense at the time. It wasn't the starting defense. So Giants fans should be excited about the quarterback, but I need to see more personally. As a non-Giants fan, I'm excited to see more. I'm enticed to see more now. He really piqued my interest with the performance on Saturday afternoon. On the other side of things for the Giants, Abdul Carter was the best player and takeaway in this game, because you hear all summer he's dominating Giants practice. And then I see clips and I say, all right, he looks sick. He was insane at Penn State. He was my number 1 player in the draft. But I see the clips and I say, he's barreling through John Michael Schmitz, who stinks, barreling through Evan Neal the first week of camp. He stinks. And the rest of the line, Runyon, no Andrew Thomas in there. You have a Luminor. Like, I'm not looking at this line and saying Abdul Carter's getting the elite competition. There's some good players on it, and they had some good weeks last year, the Giants offensive line, contrary to popular belief. But I'm not really sold on the Carter clips at practice. But then I see him against Deion Dawkins in the game on Saturday, and you're sold. If you weren't sold already based on the incredible dominance at Penn State, he's the best Penn State pass rusher we have seen in a really long time. Parsons was not that player at Penn State. He played a lot more linebacker than edge rusher. And Carter is the opposite, who was listed at linebacker as well as a member of the Penn State football team. But he just has that burst. He has the hands. He has the motor. He has the size. He has the look. He has everything of a star Big Ten pass rusher. And the Big Ten has produced the best pass rushers in the National Football League. They produce the dominant edge rushers, the Bosa brothers. Chase Young came into the league in his rookie year, set it on fire. This is the guy that Carter is. You look at all the standouts that have come through Michigan that get to the National Football League. This is who Carter is. He is one of those guys. And when it comes to Aiden Hutchinson, when it comes to the Bosas, Abdul Carter is going to get merged into that name. And Penn State had it with Parsons, obviously, too. They get another guy here that is so dominant, is so great. And I haven't seen him play an actual NFL game yet, but there's something different about this kid. There really is. And he just looks incredible. He was my number 1 ranked player in the draft, and he was the 3rd pick because you get Cam Ward, and then the Jaguars traded up for the Phenom and Travis Hunter. The Giants had a guy fall into their lap here who will transform their defense and be the next in a great line. We talk about the line of Big Ten pass rushers. How about the line of Giants pass rushers since Lawrence Taylor? You had Jason Pierre-Paul. You had Michael Strahan, Justin Tuck. This is the next great edge rusher for the Giants because Kayvon Thibodeau has not turned into that. He hasn't. And Abdul Carter will be. And when you get a guy that is going to be as good as Carter will be, I'm confident that he will be that great. Then you have a guy that will completely revamp your defense the same way Myles Garrett did it for Cleveland a few years ago. Once you get that player in the building, that top 3 pick, that once in a 15, 20-year pick for your franchise, you're in great shape defensively. The rest becomes so much easier. So expectations are high. I'm so low on Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, but we'll talk more about the Giants in a few moments. Malik Neighbors, we didn't get to see him in that game, but he's going to get grouped into a crop of young talent the Giants have at running back, now at quarterback, at defensive end, along the whole defensive line. Guys that are going to be here for the next 3 or 4 years, and you can be excited about them. Whether it translates to success right away or not, time will tell, but you can get excited about this group of guys, and it's a group of players that the Giants haven't had at the youth level in a very long time. They have not. And, I'm not going to credit Joe Shane here because a couple of these guys are absolute layups. Malik Neighbors, Abdul Carter, these were layup picks. They needed to build more in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. That's why they're not as good as they are. But nonetheless, they have young players here. And you hope that it starts to come together this season for the Giants, led by veterans like Russell Wilson, like Dexter Lawrence, Bobby Okereke. You hope that these guys, Javon Holland, Paulson Adebo, you pick these guys up to start leading the young group, to be the captains in the room. And I think the Giants could start to have semblance of a real football team this year, which is, something that we don't see very often now with Big Blue. Let's move on, though, to the Jets. This was an almost very different type of preseason success story for the Jets and Giants. I don't think that I had similar emotions after the Giants. It was a great look towards the future, a great look towards the young talent that they have. And with the Jets, it's all about the coach for me. It's all about the coach. You saw Justin Fields have a really simple drive. They ran the ball well. I think it's all products of coaching, all products of new mentalities. The Jets are going to be a top 5 running team in the National Football League this year. Whether you want to say it's going to be efficiently or not, that's a different debate. But when it comes to total yards, the Jets will be top 5 in the league this year. With the running backs they have, they invested so much into the offensive line. They have the quarterback to run. They have probably the best rushing quarterback in the National Football League in Justin Fields. So the sky is the limit for this Jets run defense, or run offense, excuse me. And you saw it with Braylon Allen, with Breece Hall, with Isaiah Davis. How about the offensive line in this game? Armand Membu and Olu Fashanu looked sensational. Joe Tittman looked terrific. He was playing left guard, though, out of position there for him because John Simpson was out. But the Jets have a lot of good things going for them, and people don't like to talk about that. They don't. They have a new coach who showed you all of the traits he was hired to have here. He's the anti-Robert Saleh, as Jake Asman put it on Twitter. He is the guy that the Jets have needed for a very long time. Will it translate to wins? Time will tell, but his personality is undoubtedly, in my mind, the one the Jets have needed, the one you hoped you were getting with Robert Saleh and didn't, the one you knew you weren't getting with Adam Gase, the one you never saw with Todd Bowles, and you saw a little bit with Rex Ryan, but you really have to go back to Herm Edwards and Bill Parcells to find the disciplinarian that Aaron Glenn is as Jets head coach. And those were 2 guys he played for. So it makes sense. They show on the broadcast him on the sideline, not only first ripping players for penalties, pulling them off the field. Michael Clemens, who gets into a fight immediately into the game. No surprise with Clemens either. He immediately pulls him off. Glenn says something to him, and then the assistant coach lays into him, the defensive line coach. Then you have another penalty on a linebacker. He comes out, he gets eviscerated that was the big viral one, by Aaron Glenn. And then you also have Tufele, the defensive tackle, scores a touchdown, and he runs over, gives the ball to Glenn. They're laughing, they're hugging, and Justin Fields scores his touchdown right over to Glenn. Big embrace, big dap up. These are both different emotions, positive and negative, that you hardly never see from Jets coaches. It's been one of the biggest complaints of the fan base, is that the coaches don't have emotions. They don't have in-game conversations, dialogues, interactions with the players on their team. And that's all Aaron Glenn could do in the first preseason game. And his first setting as a head coach. You treat these preseason games, especially in your first year as the head coach, just like a regular season game, because you have to set that tone for your players, for your coaching staff. These are important moments to set and establish your precedent. And Aaron Glenn did it in that first game, and the fan base should absolutely be excited about what they saw. There's this stigma now that Jets fans can't be excited about what's going on with their team because it's been so bad. They're the longest playoff drought in North American sports. They have the worst record in the division every year. They have the worst offense in the National Football League every year. And when it does go a little bit right, something goes horribly wrong. So I understand the notion that you can't be overly positive about this team anymore until you actually see it in the regular season. And that's fair. But football's back. Your team is back. Get a little bit excited because you're seeing things that you should have seen for years, and they're finally coming to fruition in a preseason game. I know it's a preseason game, but allow yourself to be excited a little bit because there's reason to be excited. Let's move on to the joint practice this week between the Jets and Giants. This will just be a quick little hit. I want to talk about a couple things that you should watch for. Offensive line versus defensive line. That's the position battle. We thought coming into it, let's watch Malik Neighbors versus Sauce Gardner. Neighbors, I don't think, is going to practice or play this week. He still has the toe injury that he's dealing with. He might do some light working out, but I'd be shocked if they had him go up against Sauce Gardner this week. Either way, I want to see both offensive lines versus both defensive lines, especially with the Giants D-line on the field and the Jets O-line on the field. I read all the reports from practice this morning. It just wrapped up before I started. And it sounded like the first half of the practice was a lot of Jets offense playing well. Giants defense was struggling to keep up. And then it flipped halfway through. Jets offense really stalled. Giants defense really stepped up. And the same thing happened on the other field with the Giants offense. They started strong, finished slow. But when I'm watching offensive line and defensive line with the Jets line on the field, offensive line on the field, and the Giants defensive line on the field, I want those matchups because I think it's where you're getting the best two position groups clashing. You got blue chips all over the Jets offensive line and blue chips all over the Giants defensive line. All pro defensive tackle in Dexter Lawrence. You have the third pick in the draft, Abdul Carter, who of course I just raved about. Everybody's raving about. And Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns. And then on the other side, you have 3 first-round picks in Elijah Vera-Tucker, who, when healthy, has shown that he's very good in the NFL. Olu Fashanu, going into his second year, looked good in limited sample. Armand Membu, who looked terrific on Saturday night, another first-round pick. Joe Tittman is your center. There you go with another blue-chip guy in the second round. John Simpson, who I don't think practiced today, but also Josh Myers, who started in Green Bay for the last few years. So you have 2 groups that are supposed to be 2 of the bright spots on these 2 teams. And from what I heard today and what I read today, it sounded like the best players there were Brian Burns and Olu Fashanu for the Jets. It sounded like Fashanu couldn't lose today, whether against Carter, definitely against Thibodeau. Everybody was saying he just stonewalled Thibodeau today. Then you have Burns, who was predominantly on the opposite side, just dominating. Sounded like Membu had a lot of trouble with him. And when you go through both sides of it, there are positives to the failures as well. When Membu struggles against Brian Burns, you're saying, all right, this is a guy that is at the higher level of players he's going to see in the National Football League. When Carter struggles against Fashanu or against Tittman, you're going to say, all right, these are 2 of the more talented players at this position. These were blue chip talents who have shown that they can play in the National Football League. This is good stuff for Carter to see. And that was the same case to an even further extent with Deion Dawkins. And when you see them winning those reps, that's huge. And then they're also going up against a really good run offense and a good group of running backs on both sides. So you have that element of physicality at the line of scrimmage. This is a great joint practice matchup, the offensive lines versus the defensive lines. And then, of course, the eyes are on both quarterbacks with Russell Wilson, with Jackson Dart, who both sounded, again, like they started strong and didn't finish too well. But Justin Fields, same thing. And overall, we'll see how it comes to clash on the field at MetLife on Saturday. But this is a really good matchup in joint practice for these 2 teams. I don't always feel that way about the Jets and Giants. I actually usually hate that they definitely play each other every year. It totally makes sense. But a lot of years, I think there's better options out there for joint practices and 4 preseason games than the Jets and Giants playing each other because of the matchups, because of what each team's trying to do. This year, I think that they really match up well with each other. And you're going to see a lot of good players on both sides. And at the position groups that you're really trying to strengthen, they're going to have serious competition in these joint practices. Goes for both sides. I want to go through our schedule prediction now. And we'll start in the AFC East. You can see the entire division's breakdowns by record, by placement on Instagram. We posted it this morning. But this is where we're really going to try and hone in and explain a lot of what is the rationale behind these decisions. So first of all, with the schedule predictions, what I did was take to the NFL schedule predictor and we went through every single game individually. I in the past have nonsensically just picked 7 teams to make the playoffs on each side, picked order of divisions. But this year, I literally went through every single game. I think it's close to 300 games and picked an outcome and a score because I wanted to know who I was projecting as the top offense and top defense. So it did take a decent amount of time to go through this. And there are even some things that surprised me. But first of all, it's pretty chalky. I'm going to preface with that. But in the AFC East, we have Buffalo in first, 13-4. New England in second at 8-9. The Jets also 8-9 and third, and Miami 6-11 and fourth. Miami is one of the teams this year that I'm really down on. You look at their starting defense, it's an abysmal group. It's a really bad group of players on paper. And the Jets are getting better by 3 games in this with an 8-9 record. That would be a pretty big success, I think, for them in this first year with Glenn and with the new group that they have. The Patriots at 8-9, I'm at a place with the Patriots where I think they're a little overrated heading into the year. I think they're a little overhyped. I think they're going to have a slower start than people believe, but you're going to finish the year at 8-9 and say that team is really legit. That's a really good football team moving forward. They had a slower start this year. Drake May was still developing, but I think you're going to say this is a really good team. And a couple signature wins for them, including I gave them a win at Buffalo. They were the only team in the division that beat Buffalo, and they had a better division record than the Jets. That's why they finished second. The Jets and Patriots split games. They each won their home game. I'd throw them. They've split each of the last 2 seasons. But Buffalo got the 13-4 record. They're the only 13-win team I had, and I think that they're just going to dominate again. When you talk about regular season players, Josh Allen is turning into one of the best of all time. He is able to take over games completely in the regular season. And if the Bills did not win this division, I'd be stunned. I'd be absolutely floored if Buffalo lost this division. So once again, Buffalo in first, Patriots second, Jets third, Dolphins fourth. That's the prediction. Dolphins with a disappointing 6-11 year. Another concerning aspect of Miami's season is I'm really worried about a slow start for them. Does everyone just check out? Tyreek Hill has had a really cryptic offseason. I don't know if he wants to be there. A lot of people suggest that he does not. He has kind of openly said he doesn't know if he wants to be there through social media. And it's not even for a new contract or anything. He showed signs of regression last year, like he was hitting the age regression, losing some speed. I thought he lost a step last season. And with the health concerns around the quarterback, and now your backup is Zach Wilson, who looked awful over the weekend. You have a pretty solid running game, but I'm just not into the idea that Miami's offense will be what it was 2 years ago, and the defense is going to be so bad. So Miami's a team that I'm not high on at all. The Jets have a very easy schedule. New England has a fair schedule as well, but I think they'll be a pretty good 8-9 team. And then Buffalo is not, they have a first place schedule, so it's very hard. They play Baltimore, they play Kansas City, but I think that they are going to roll through this and just be Buffalo, because that's what the Bills have been the last few years, is they've been the top seed. They've been the 12, 13 win team, and they've ran this division. So let's move to the AFC North. I have in first place Baltimore at 12-5. I have after that Cincinnati at 10-7, and then you move on to Pittsburgh 9-8, Cleveland 2-15. This was my only division in the AFC with 3 playoff teams, and they get all 3 squads in Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore's the 2 seed in this postseason bracket with 12 wins. All 4 division winners had 12 or more wins in the AFC, so we'll go through that in a second. But 4 of these squads I think are good enough to get in. Cincinnati's defense worries me. 10-7. It's 1 win better than they were last year. Pittsburgh 1 win worse than they were last year at 9-8 with Aaron Rodgers this year. I don't love their offense. I don't think it's going to be very good. I think at best you get a game manager there. He's very slow now, Aaron Rodgers. He does not have the quick feet that he once did. He's going to have a big year with Metcalf. And Arthur Smith's going to have a career season, because the running backs with Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson. I mean, Caleb Johnson, I liked him at Iowa. He looked awful over the weekend in the preseason game. That's what I mean about preseason. Like, you have guys that look good, and people like to say it doesn't matter. But when guys look bad, it's really concerning. Obviously, you just rather the guy look good than bad. Caleb Johnson looked horrific at running back on Saturday in the Steelers game, but you don't have a good group of backs. You don't have a really good group of playmakers. And defensively, they're going to be very good. Tomlin will win them a few games. Rodgers will have 1 or 2 big games still that he can win them, the same way he did last year with the Jets. Down the stretch, he had a big game in Jacksonville. He had a big game against Miami. So you're going to have your big games from him still because there's still gas left in the tank. But Baltimore, I'm high on again. I'm high on them every year. I saw USA Today pick them to be in the Super Bowl. The famous USA Today predictions last year, USA Today said the Jets were going to win the Super Bowl, but Baltimore is their Super Bowl champion. I don't think I'd get there yet. I'm not doing playoff predictions yet. I'm going to hold off and really see until later when we start doing actual football podcasts aside from just the bunker when we get back to that in 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm excited to watch Baltimore again this year. They're always one of my favorite teams to watch. John Harbaugh is criminally underrated as a head coach. Their coaching staff is terrific. Todd Monken's an excellent OC. And Lamar Jackson is one of those sensational regular season players. So when you look at them, it's going to be tough to beat them. The defense should be better this year. Cincinnati, I'm really worried about their defense. Still no Trey Hendrickson update. And they're going to have to win games again, 45-38. It's going to be tough to get stops if you're the Bengals, especially if you don't have Hendrickson. But the offense should light it up. Offense should have another massive year. The pieces are all there. Pittsburgh, again, they're going to win some close ones. And Cleveland, I think, is just going to stink. I don't think you're going to get any Flacco magic. I think Pickett's awful. Sanders and Gabriel, they win you games this year. I'd be shocked. But Cleveland, I'm way down on. They're tied for the worst record in the league at 2-15. But the Saints will get the first pick in the draft due to strength of schedule. AFC South. We go to the Texans as the first place team. And I think the AFC South this year is an interesting division. But the Texans, I think, are going to have a big bounce back. They hit the sophomore slump with D'Amico and CJ last year, but they still won the division. Jacksonville in second, 7-10. Indianapolis in third, 6-11. Tennessee in fourth, 5-12. Tennessee's pretty self-explanatory. They were the worst team in the league last year. They lost a lot of games because of Will Levis. If Tennessee won 7, 8, 9 games because Cam Ward is that rookie this year, that's not crazy. Not a crazy idea. Indianapolis, how many games are they going to win with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson as their quarterbacks? I have them at 6-11, probably a really competitive 6-11. The rest of the roster is pretty good. Jacksonville 7-10, another talented team, but first-year coach. Do I trust Trevor Lawrence yet? I don't. Do I trust their defense right now? I don't. But they did, make the splash at the draft with Travis Hunter. He's going to be a big-time player in this, a big wild card, and whether or not they can be one of those 6-seed teams in the AFC. But Houston has the weapons. Houston has a good amount of players on defense to have a top 10 unit, and they have a coach that I think can get that unit there. You're relying on the bounce back from Stroud. You're relying on the improved offense, and I think for the Texans, they're going to have that this year, but they have a tougher schedule too outside of the division. But in the division, I think that they're going to take care of business and win it. So I have them at 12-5. It's 5 games better than Jacksonville in the division. So that's a pretty dominant season if that came to fruition. Now we go to my favorite division this season, and that's the AFC West. The AFC West, man, this division's really good. This division's awesome. This is a football division. Kansas City, first place, 12-5. Chargers, 10-7 in second place. Broncos, 9-8 in third. And in fourth place, the Raiders at 8-9. I think it's tight. I think I have each one of these teams winning a game in the division, or winning against every team in the division, And the Raiders are going to be the best fourth place team in football this year. Pete Carroll's going to give them a huge boost. What's been the biggest problem in Las Vegas? The 2 biggest problems in Las Vegas the last few seasons. They don't have a quarterback and they don't have a coach. Now they have an elite Hall of Fame level coach and they have a very good quarterback in Geno Smith. That win total is going to go up big time. They have a good offensive line with Jackson Powers-Johnson, with Colton Miller, with a couple of their returning guys. They have Ashton Genty now to handle the run game. Receivers are still really suspect. Jacoby Myers is their top guy, but I'm really high on the Raiders as a fourth-place squad. Now we go to the Broncos in third place there. I think Denver's going to have the best defense in the National Football League. They score the least amount of points, or they allow the least amount of points, in our simulation, but the Broncos defense is absolutely loaded. Zach Allen, stud. DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, Jonathan Cooper, Alex Singleton. They had Dre Greenlaw. They had Talanoa Hufanga. They have, obviously, Pat Surtain coming back. They have Jaquan McMillan, who is, one of the more underrated nickels in the league. They have Jahdae Barron added from Texas in the first round. He fell into their lap. I could not be higher on this Broncos defense. And then you go to their offense, too. And it's a pretty complete group offensively. Offensive line is pretty good. They have Bo Nix, who I love going into his second season. Excuse me again. J.K. Dobbins at running back sounds like he's going to be the starter, but they get R.J. Harvey in the draft as well. Audric Estime, young back. They have McLaughlin still. Then you have at wide receiver Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims. You drafted Troy Franklin last year. You drafted Vele last year late in the draft, who showed some signs of real talent in the season. Denver's loaded. Denver wins a couple of the divisions in the league. I think they win the AFC South. I think they'd win the NFC South probably too. I think they're a little better than Tampa maybe. And I don't even have them making the playoffs because I have them getting totally cannibalized in this division, falling to 9-8. They had some luck last year, but they also lost a few games early where Bo Nix could not move the ball and he was not settled in at all. So the Broncos are a huge threat this year. I hate that I have them out of the playoffs in this, but I do. And once again, I think it's just because the difficulty in the division and that sophomore year, I think they're 1 year away still from being true contenders. But it's tough in the AFC West right now to be a good team. It's really tough to make the playoffs. And none of the 4 teams are guaranteed to get in the AFC West. I don't guarantee anyone. I don't guarantee the Chiefs. I don't guarantee the Chargers, because if you lose your quarterback or if you lose a key player for 3 to 5 weeks and you go 1-4 or 2-3 in that stretch, that might be a death note for you. That might be the kill shot in this division. It's that dangerous. It's that competitive. 4 Hall of Fame level coaches, 4 good quarterbacks. 2 of the quarterbacks are absolutely great. Knicks might be 2, and 4 defenses, 3 of them which are phenomenal in KC, LA, and Denver. And Vegas is going to have a good one as well. Not great this year, but it'll be good with Pete Carroll and the pieces that they have. Let's go to the NFC now, starting in the NFC East. It'll be the Eagles, the defending champs, in first, the Commanders in second at 9-8, the Cowboys 7-10 in third, Giants 6-11. They'll finish last. Again, this division stays exactly the same from last year, but I only have one team making the playoffs, Philadelphia Eagles. The Commanders beat on a lot of bad teams last year. They beat a lot of bad quarterbacks last year. 9-8 is still a good record. Their schedule's very hard. The NFC East as a whole has brutal scheduling this season. Washington's going to struggle in the division. They're going to struggle playing the second place schedule they have to play. And you have to play tough teams every week. Every single week, it feels like. You get the one game against, one of the NFC South teams, I think. But I'm pulling up their schedule now. Their schedule, this is just an absolute gauntlet. You get the Giants in week 1. It never gets easier after that. Packers, Raiders, Falcons, Chargers, Bears, Cowboys, Chiefs, Seahawks, Lions, Dolphins, Vikings, Broncos, Giants, Eagles, Cowboys. That is just a brutal schedule. In the division's hard. You don't get any breaks. And I give them a 9-8 record, which, listen, 9 wins. It's fair in that schedule. It's fair. I looked back through it to make sure I didn't make any errors. Washington got to the NFC Championship game last year. They added a lot of guys. They added Debo. They added Laramie Tunsil. They added Von Miller. I'm not sold that they can get back to the postseason this year with that schedule. And if they do, I'm not surprised at all. I love Jaden Daniels. I like their coaching staff. I don't love it, but I like it. And I think last year they caught lightning in a bottle. This year, with expectations high, they might fall short. Dallas 7-10. I hate Schottenheimer. I hate the roster. I think that Dak Prescott will win them a few games. CeeDee Lamb will win them a few games. Parsons, they have enough talent to win 7 games, but I really don't like the roster. I don't think they're a playoff team this year. Giants 6-11. They just are a product of this schedule. This schedule's hell. It's the same pretty much as the Commanders. It's awful, and they're going to start slow. I don't like the quarterbacks. I think the defense is not as great as people think. I think we look at the front 4 and say that's phenomenal. That's one of the top 5 groups, but that doesn't equate to great defense. I hate Shane Bowen. I think he's one of the worst defensive coordinators in the league. He does not have a track record of success, and the secondary is still spotty. I mean, Giants fans are excited about Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo, as you should be. But when push comes to shove, Adebo is not a top corner in the National Football League. Javon Holland is one of the better safeties in the league, but there's a reason he didn't have a lot of interest on the market in free agency. You read about his free agency, it was not as planned. He got a nice contract from the Giants, but on good value for New York. He was really good with Vic Fangio. Will Bowen be able to return him to what he was 2 years ago? Because last year, Holland was not very good. The linebackers are real hit or miss. I don't understand the inconsistencies with the Giants linebackers. And Deontay Banks was horrid last year. Horrid with Shane Bowen. He was drafted for the Martindale system, and he was good in it for his rookie year. Wink goes to Michigan. The Giants fire him, and Bowen is not nearly the cornerback coach. Look at all the failures in Tennessee with Shane Bowen at corner. Caleb Farley was one of them. First-round picks that just turned into nothing in Tennessee. So Bowen does not get me excited for the Giants defense. I think it'll still be a good unit, but 6-11 is where I have them. NFC North, toughest to predict. Absolutely the toughest, because I can't imagine two teams winning 13-plus games again and another team in the Packers winning 10 or 11. Could it go that way? Sure, it could. But man, it would be really tough. It would be really tough for that to happen. And I have Detroit at 12-5, Green Bay at 10-7, Minnesota in third at 9-8, Chicago disappointing at 5-12. They'd be the biggest disappointment in the league if this was their record, and if all of these records were true, because they'd be the most wins under their win-loss total. They're at 8.5, they're at 8.5, and they'd be at 5 wins in this. That is bad. 3.5 under your win total. That would be the same record as last year, which was a mess. If that happened in the first year of Ben Johnson, Bears fans are going to lose their minds. But once again, all I did here was go game by game through the schedule and pick the winners, pick what I thought would happen, and this is where we got to. But Detroit is going to take a slight step back this year, but a slight step back for Detroit is still an 11-12 win team. A massive step back would be missing the playoffs. I don't like the idea of them starting fast this year without Ben Johnson, without Aaron Glenn. I think it's going to take a little bit for coordinators to get adjusted, for players to get adjusted, for Dan Campbell to get adjusted, but they have way too much talent to not win games and to not keep this thing going. They have a great thing going. Too much talent there to not do it. Green Bay, 10-7. One of the teams that I'm just not totally understanding at this point in time. Like, who is Jordan Love? What kind of quarterback is he really? Josh Jacobs is really good. Xavier McKinney was a great pickup for them. They finally added free agent talent on each side. Is Matthew Golden going to be an impact receiver in year one? You could remember their division games being disappointing the last few years. Playoff games were disappointing, but we're talking regular season record. I have them in the playoffs, but I don't have great confidence in them to be better than Minnesota. However, in this schedule prediction, they are one game better than Minnesota. Vikings go 9-8 in year one of J.J. McCarthy. They missed the playoffs, albeit a fairly successful year if you could win 9 games again. But last year, what they did with Darnold should just encourage you for what they can do with McCarthy, who looked good in his preseason debut. They were all in his sophomore year preseason debut. First football since his injury. He looked good the other day. So I'd be still high on Minnesota, but I had them at 9-8. They have a tough schedule as well. Again, Chicago goes 5-12. That's a disappointing year for them. We move now to the NFC South. We'll work quickly through the South because I love Tampa Bay 11-6. I made a video on Tampa Bay last week. You all know how I feel about the Bucs. They're loaded. They have a great team. The only concern with their offense is it's their 4th offensive coordinator in 4 years. Leftwich got fired. Canales went to the Panthers. Cohen went to the Jaguars. Now you're on to Grizzard, and you don't know what it's going to look like right away. You don't know if they'll start slow. Too much talent, though, to stink. They have a really good offensive line, really good quarterback in Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Ibuka at wide receiver. And then in the backfield, you have Bucky Irving and Rashad White. So that's too much talent on offense not to score points. I don't really care who the OC is. The part of the OC is getting all these jobs the last 2 years is the talent's great, and the quarterback puts points on the board. That's where we are with Tampa's offense. Defensively, incomplete defense. Defense will lose them a few games this year. You hope Todd Bowles can supplement that as a defensive-minded guy, someone who's had a lot of success doing more with less defensively in past years, but they still have good players on it. Vita Vea. They still have Levante David, Antoine Winfield. You're looking for the secondary to really take a step up and be better than they were last year, be better than they were the year before. Atlanta in second, 10-7. Carolina in third, 6-11. New Orleans, the worst team in football this year at 2-15. I have Atlanta in the playoffs at 10-7. You need 10-7 to get into the playoffs in this NFC schedule prediction. 9-8 got you in the AFC with Pittsburgh. In the NFC, though, you need 10-7 with the wild card. For the wild card. Excuse me, lost my thought for a moment. Carolina, I think, is going to be pretty competitive. The Saints are just going to be awful. I mean, how many games Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck going to be able to win you? Your defense isn't great. They're stuck in this rebuild that they didn't expect to be in. First-year head coach. I'd be shocked if they weren't picking first or second in the draft next year. I'd Cleveland at the same record, but Cleveland will probably be a little bit better than 2 wins. They'll steal a couple games there with Flacco and with the playmakers they have on defense. But the Saints have very little going for them, and I think that with this division, it's tougher than you expect. There's not going to be games in the division to win, but Atlanta is the team that piques my interest the most. What does Raheem Morris second year look like? What does Michael Penix second year look like? And Atlanta needs to be good this year. It's been too many years of too many resources put into this team. Terry Fontenot now in year 5, drafting so many playmakers. Does the offense finally show what they put into it? Does it finally give you the return on investment that you've hoped for? The defense should be solid, but the offense is where we're going to need to see it. A lot of pressure on Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator, and a lot of pressure on Michael Penix to take a step in year 2. Kirk Cousins is still there now as the backup with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, with Bijan Robinson. These guys have to start playing well. London has, Robinson did last year. But when does Pitts come alive? When does the offense come alive? A lot of questions this year for Atlanta. I don't think they're good enough to win this division. I don't think they're better than Tampa. Last division, NFC West. We're going with the Niners in first, 12-5. The Niners are the most improved team in football. If they go 12-5, that's a 7-win increase from their 5-12 record last year. And San Fran wins the division in this simulation. But the Rams come in second, 10-7, also make the playoffs. San Fran would get the 1 seed in the NFC. By the way, if this happened, it would be 1 seed San Fran, 2 is Detroit, 3 is Philly, 4 is Tampa. And then in the rest of the NFC West, Seattle goes 9-8. Arizona goes 6-11. Again, 9-8 does not get you into the playoffs. Arizona would be a disappointment, too, at 6 wins. They're over-under set up at 8.5, too. So San Fran, with Robert Saleh back, should get that defense back that won them so many games the last 5 years. They should get the McCaffrey factor back into this offense. He should have a more healthy season than last year. He hardly played. So San Fran, I think, bounces back. They do this every other year, it seems like now. They have a good year, then they have a bad year, then they have a great year, then they have a good year, then a bad year. It's like this is their cycle. I think San Fran bounces back. LA's really weird because Stafford hasn't practiced yet this summer. I don't know where I am with them. I don't know if I want to put them all the way up top at first. I don't know if I want to put them in third. Worse than Seattle. I only have a game better than Seattle, but that's because they beat them twice in my schedule prediction. I have them winning both games against the Seahawks. And then the Seahawks, this division's really interesting. The Seahawks with Sam Darnold this year, what does that look like? You know, a lot of questions with Seattle and whether or not Darnold can replicate even some of his success from Minnesota last year without Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson. The offense is worse in Seattle, but you still have the playmakers to get there. You have a similar offensive line. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have Kenneth Walker and a good group of running backs. So can you replicate some of that success? Seattle now, DK Metcalf's gone. Tyler Lockett's gone. They have a lot of holes on defense too. 9-8 might be rich for them at the end of the year. We might look back and say that was a rich record for them. But I'm putting my trust in McDonald. I'm putting my trust in the front office and the organization because they do win, they do compete. And Sam Darnold was a big risk for them. Big risk signing. They went out and got him, though. And Seattle is hoping to take a step forward. I don't know if they can get better, though, with the moves they made. I don't think they get better. I think that they stay right around the same spot. That's going to do it for today's episode. We went through all the divisions. We'll do a more encompassing NFL preview with other guys on it later in the summer, but I wanted to get this one out of the way and explain to you some of the rationale, some of the thinking behind the divisions and the picks and the records. So I appreciate you listening. Also to that first half of the show, Jets, Giants, a lot of talk there. I know that that's not for everybody, but we broke it down today. We got it out of the way. We'll still talk about it more throughout the next couple weeks because, of course, many of you guys are fans of the teams. It's relevant. The two teams are relevant in the summer. So we'll continue talking about them. Remember, you can listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're listening there, you can also watch this on YouTube. Appreciate you sticking with us, sticking with BTO Media. Make sure to follow the accounts, Instagram, TikTok, BTO Media. Listen to No Good Takes. Giuseppe Oliveri did an episode today, mic'd up with Michael Merlo. He'll do one later in the week. And the Playbook with Gabe Zotto. We had a new episode of The Burrows yesterday talking New York baseball. Big Yankees win last night. We'll be back on Friday with The Burrows. But I appreciate you sticking with us here on The Bunker. And I will see you, if not tomorrow, then sometime early next week. And we're going to dive into fantasy football in our next episode a lot. And then, of course, also training camp rumor mill, which we usually do to start the episode. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.